Hello, I'm doing a movie review, and the movie I want to review is Lisa and the Devil. Now, Lisa and the Devil is a 1973 Spanish-Italian horror fantasy film co-written and directed by Mario Bava and co-written and produced by Alfredo Leone. At least they're the credited screenwriters. According to IMDb, 4 other people also wrote this script, but they went uncredited. Now, Bava and Leone previously worked together on Barren Blood, which also had Elke Sommer in it. And Leone would go on to produce Mario Bava's film Rabid Dogs, which was made in 1974, however that movie didn't end up getting released until the 1990s. Now, Mario Bava, in a lot of ways, you could almost consider to be the father of Italian horror. Like, before Dario Argento and Lucio Fulci, there was Mario Bava. Now, Mario Bava also directed films like Black Sunday, Black Sabbath, Kill Baby Kill, Hercules in the Haunted World, Hatchet for the Honeymoon, Blood and Black Lace, A Bay of Blood, and many others. Mario Bava, I think, had over 30 films to his credit. He was a very prolific director, not just in the horror genre, but he also directed quite a few westerns and even some sex comedies. But horror, of course, was what he was most known for. And he was also the father of Lamberto Bava, who directed Demons and Demons 2. Now, the film was released at Cannes Film Festival in 1973, however, Alfredo Leone failed to find distribution. But a few years later, Leone and Lamberto Bava shot additional scenes featuring an exorcism, and they edited those into the movie and re-released the film in 1975 as The House of Exorcism to capitalize on the success of The Exorcist. Now, I have Lisa and the Devil and the re-edited version, The House of Exorcism, on the same DVD. Now, this review is primarily going to be on Lisa and the Devil, which in my opinion is the superior cut, but I will give some words on The House of Exorcism at the end of this review. And I have the movie on this DVD set that Anchor Bay put out, featuring several other Mario Bava films. Now, some of you might remember that I actually did review this movie a number of years ago, but I decided to take my old review of this movie down, really for my own personal reasons. Like, I felt like my old review really didn't do this movie much of a justice, so I wanted to take another crack at it. But I can't really promise that I'm gonna be any more satisfied with this review than I was my old one. But I wanted to review this again because this is a movie that I've honestly become kind of obsessed with over the years, and in my opinion, this is Mario Bava's masterpiece. And I think if he were still alive, Mario Bava would have actually agreed with me because, according to the audio commentary by Tim Lucas that is on this DVD, this was the only film that Mario Bava made for himself. And apparently this was a very personal film for him, and in my opinion, this is Bava's most artistic film. This movie is a haunting, yet strangely beautiful and even poetic ghost story. This movie also features one of my top 5 favorite depictions of the devil in film. Now, the plot of Lisa and the Devil is it's about a young American woman named Lisa Rayner who's on vacation in Spain, and she's with a tour group, and their guide shows them this fresco of the devil carrying away the dead. She ends up wandering away from her tour group when she hears the sound of music coming from this shop. When she gets to this shop, she sees a man carrying around a lifelike dummy, and this man bears a frightening resemblance to the image of Satan from the fresco. She ends up getting lost, unable to find her tour group, and all of a sudden she runs across this man who looks just like the dummy that the man in the shop was carrying around, and this man recognizes her as a woman named Elena. She ends up freaking out and accidentally pushing this guy down some steps, apparently killing him. She ends up running across this rich couple and their driver, and they say they'll give her a ride, but their car ends up breaking down in front of this villa. And the villa is home to a blind countess, her troubled son Maximilian, and their servant Leandro, who Lisa is shocked to discover is the same man that she saw in the shop earlier. As the film goes on, Lisa is haunted by this man that she thought she killed earlier, who you find out is named Carlos, but it turns out that he's been dead for years prior to the events of this story. It turns out that Carlos is a ghost, and Lisa is also having visions of what could be a past life. And without giving too much away, let's just say that Carlos is not the only ghost at this villa, and this man Leandro, as the film goes on, it becomes apparent that he is actually a demon, possibly even Lucifer himself, in human form. Now, in the film, Elke Sommer plays Lisa, and she does an amazing job in this movie. However, the character of Lisa herself, despite being the titular character, she is kind of two-dimensional in the film. Like, in a lot of ways, she's almost more of a cipher, or sort of like the audience's surrogate, but I actually think that's really interesting, because I think the characters around her are actually really three-dimensional. But Lisa is an interesting character in the sense that it seems like she's an outsider to all of this, but as the movie goes on, you start to realize that she does have a connection to what's going on in the story. And in the film, Leandro, or Satan, is played by Telly Savalas, who is freaking incredible in this movie. Like, in my opinion, he steals this freaking film. Like, Telly Savalas' character of Leandro, in my opinion, is one of the top 5 movie devils. Like, I would hold his performance right up there with Viggo Mortensen's performance in The Prophecy, or Al Pacino's performance in The Devil's Advocate, or Robert De Niro's performance in Angel Heart, or whoever the little girl was who played the devil in The Last Temptation of Christ. That's also one of my favorite depictions of Satan on film. Like, Telly Savalas is so likable and so charming as the devil in this movie. And I like how the devil isn't necessarily the main villain of this film, rather he's kind of just there to punish these people for their sins, and it's really the human characters who are evil. And you almost get a sense that Satan is just as much a victim of the circles of hell as the human souls who are condemned to hell. And I think it's interesting how Satan in this movie takes on the role of a servant, because if you go back to the traditional Lucifer story, Lucifer rebelled against God because he didn't want to be subservient to God, yet here he is as a servant to this countess and her son. I don't know if that was done on purpose, or maybe I'm just reaching way deeper than was actually intended. But I also like how the movie never flat out says that Leandro is the devil, it's just something you're kind of supposed to assume. I also think it's interesting how throughout the film you see Leandro sucking on a lollipop. Apparently in the original script it was actually gumdrops that he really liked, but Telly Savalas didn't care for gummy treats, so he chose a lollipop, and apparently he was already using lollipops to sort of help him with his smoking. But it's interesting to note that Telly Savalas also famously played the character of Kojak on TV, who also really liked lollipops, but apparently this movie was shot before the character started sucking on lollipops on TV. In the movie you have Eduardo Fajardo, I know I butchered his last name, as the character of Francis Lehar, and you have Sylva Koscina as his wife, Sophia, and right off the bat you could tell that this is a very unhappy marriage, and you also have Gabriele Tinti, who's been in many Italian exploitation films as the Lehar's driver, Giorgio, who Sophia is having an affair with. Also in the film you had Alessio Orano, and I know I butchered his name, as the character of Maximilian, who is a very sympathetic character, or at least he's sympathetic to a certain extent. You definitely start to lose sympathy for him, especially towards the end of the film, but he's sympathetic and also very creepy at the same time. But he does a really good job at the actor does a really good job at portraying this character as being both creepy and sympathetic. And the character of Maximilian is also a very Norman Bates-esque character, and Alfredo Leone originally wanted Anthony Perkins to play this character, but as Tim Lucas says on the audio commentary, that probably would have been a little too on the nose. And Alida Valli plays the Countess. Alida Valli would later show up in Dario Argento's Suspiria and Inferno.
She was also in Eyes Without a Face.
And the Countess is a real interesting character. She is sympathetic to a certain extent, but you also kind of hate her because you kind of realize that she's the reason that Maximilian is so fucked up. But again, all the acting in this movie is really damn good. But as I said before, Lisa and the Devil is an excellent movie. In my personal opinion, this is Mario Bava's best film. Like, the film is haunting and creepy, but there is something kind of beautiful and poetic about the film, as I said before. Like, there's some really good camera work in this movie and some beautiful music. And there are some aspects of this film that are definitely derivative of other films, but that doesn't really bother me with this movie. It is a very surreal and dreamlike film. It is a movie that you do kind of have to watch multiple times in order to really get a feel for it and really kind of understand what's going on in the film, because there is a lot in this movie that you do kind of have to make your own interpretation of.
The movie is also a unique mix of genres. Like, to a certain extent, it's sort of a dark version of Alice in Wonderland. The movie also has elements of the ghost story genre, of surrealist fantasy, and there are even some giallo elements in the movie.
Now, if you do get this DVD, which as I said is on the Mario Bava box set, which I'm not sure if this is still in print or not, but if you do get this DVD, I highly recommend listening to the audio commentary from Tim Lucas. It is an excellent commentary track and really informative. Now, I know Arrow Video also put this movie out on DVD and Blu-ray. I'm not sure if the Tim Lucas commentary is also available on that DVD or not. Now, as I pointed out earlier in this video, there is a re-edited version of this movie called The House of Exorcism, and I am not a fan of the House of Exorcism version at all. Now, to be fair, it's been a while since I've watched it, but what they essentially did with that was they took what, in my opinion, could very much qualify as an art house film, and they re-edited it, and in my opinion, butchered it and turned it into an exploitation film, and that's not really what Lisa and the Devil is. As I said, I think Lisa and the Devil is probably Mario Bava's most artistic film. Basically, in House of Exorcism, they outright explain what's going on in the story, where the whole movie is basically just visions that Lisa is having as she's being possessed by demons. But quite frankly, the exorcism scenes really don't match up with the Lisa and the Devil scenes at all. So I personally recommend the Lisa and the Devil cut, the original cut of the movie. I recommend skipping the House of Exorcism. I mean, who knows, maybe you'll like it and check it out of curiosity, but really you should watch the original version of this film. But that was my review on Lisa and the Devil, and bye.